calm. Okay, last month we finished exploring the extensive footnote, which referenced HPV's teachings on the 7 keys. Then took a look at the final subsection of disorders of the etheric body called microcosmic static disorders that relates to human beings, which describe the ring pass knot between the physical and astral sheaths for both humanity, and a planetary and a solar logos. We began a new chapter called Macrocosmic and Microcosmic Ethers, where we learned that, quote, man, the indwelling thinker, passes at night from out of his etheric ring pass knot and functions elsewhere. This led to a discussion on pralaya and the divisions of time from 100 years to 1 moment of Brahma, and the fact that pralaya, whether for a person or a logos, is always determined by karma, which is meted out by the quote-unquote true man, that's the soul, microcosmically, and the Lepika lords, or lords of karma, macrocosmically. We then learned that the 4 planetary logi that exemplify the 4 rays of attribute, which are also called the 4 rays of mind, hold in their keeping the present evolutionary process for man. And finally, we began looking at a footnote which references, quote, the 4 Maharajas, the lesser Lepika lords. So this takes us up to where we left off last time. The first footnote states the 4 Lepika lords stand between the first and second plane. Now this is a bit different use of the plane, of the idea of planes, because it's HPB's and first generation theosophy's understanding. And yet it actually might have relevance when we draw this ring pass knot between the plane of Adi and the monadic plane. So anyway, could we get a reader for this secret doctrine reference, please?
Yes, and Veronica.
Hello.
Hi, Veronica. Could you read for us?
Hello. I'm on the telephone. I'll try my best to do it.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great if you can. If not, that's fine too.
The Lipika separated the world or plane of pure spirit from that of matter. Astronomically, the ring pass knot that the Lipika trace around the triangle. The first one, the cube, the second one, and the pentacle, to circumscribe these figures, is thus shown to contain the symbol of 31415 again, or the coefficient constantly used in mathematical tables, the value of pi, the geometrical figure standing here for numerical figures.
Thank you, Veronica. So the first plane, right, we're talking about the 4 Lepika lords that stand between the first and second plane. So the first plane is that of pure spirit, right? That lies between, let's see, which lies within the ring pass knot, sorry, at the top of the illustration. So everything inside this ring pass knot, symbolically speaking, is that first plane of pure spirit. The second plane is the manifest realm, conditioned by the 31415, which is the number of pi, which defines the circle that separates the two. Okay. Next, the Lipikas can pass the ring pass knot. They only can pass the ring pass knot during this Mahamanvantara or Manvantara. Could we get a reader for this short passage?
Joe.
Yes, I'm here. No spirit except the recorder's, Lipika, has ever crossed its forbidden line, nor will any do so until the day of the next pralaya, for it is the boundary that separates the finite, however infinite in man's sight, from the truly infinite.
Thank you, Joe. So, you have to understand these Lipika are true cosmic beings. They are not bound by any of the ring pass knots within this solar system. They're agents from Sirius that implement the law of karma throughout the solar system. And they're the only ones, for instance, that can participate in the council of the solar logos. So they're beings at the level of planetary logi on their own plane. Next up, they are connected with karma. Now, that's putting it mildly. Can we get a reader here for this, please?
Yep. Karen.
The Lipika are the spirits of the universe, whereas the builders are only our own planetary deities. The former belong to the most occult portion of cosmogenesis, which cannot be given here. Whether the adepts, even the highest, know this angelic order in the completeness of its triple degrees, or only the lower one connected with the records of our world, is something which the writer is unprepared to say, and she would incline rather to the latter supposition. Of its highest grade, one thing only is taught. The Lipika are connected with karma, being its direct recorders.
Thank you, Karen. Next, they are concerned with the hereafter. Can we get a reader for that footnote?
Kira.
The Maharajas are the protectors of mankind and also the agents of karma on earth, whereas the Lipika are concerned with humanity's hereafter. At the same time, they are the four living creatures who have the likeness of a man, of Ezekiel's visions, called by the translators of the Bible cherubim, seraphim, etc., and by the occultists, the winged globes, the fiery wheels, and in the Hindu pantheon by a number of different names. All of these Gandharvas, the sweet songsters, the Asuras, Kinnaras, and Nagas are the allegorical descriptions of the four Maharajas.
Thank you. Okay, the final two references are included in some of the earlier quotes. Okay, so let's get back to the body of the text. Moving on to the middle of page 112 here. Could we get a reader, please?
Kirsten.
Therefore, we have the following groups interacting. First, the four Maharajas, the lesser Lipika lords, who apply past karma and work it out in the present. Second, The four Lipikas of the second group, referred to by HPB as occupied in applying future karma and wielding the future destiny of the races. The work of the first group of four cosmic Lipika lords is occult and is only revealed somewhat at the fourth initiation, and even then but slightly, so it will not be touched upon here. Third, the fourth creative hierarchy of human monads held by a fourfold karmic law under the guidance of the Lipikas. Fourth, the four planetary logoi of harmony, knowledge, abstract thought, and ceremonial, who are in their totality the quaternary of manas, while in process of evolution, and who pass under their influence all the sons of men. Fifth, the Deva lords of the four planes of Buddhi, or the plane of spiritual intuition, manas, or the mental plane, desire, and the physical, who are likewise allied to the human evolution in a closer sense than the higher three.
Thank you. Okay, first up, therefore we have the following groups interacting. First, the four Maharajas, the lesser Lipika lords, who apply past karma and work it out in the present. The lesser Lipika lords are the agents of karma on earth that we just read about. These are the most easy for us to understand because they seemingly work within the time continuum, working with past karma and applying it in the present. Second, the four Lipikas of the second group, referred to by HPB as occupied in applying future karma and wielding the future destiny of the races. The work of the first group of four cosmic Lipikas is occult and is only revealed somewhat at the fourth initiation, and even then, but slightly. So it will not be touched upon here. So, question. What is future karma? Which this statement suggests determines, quote, the future destiny of the races. How can karma, which is defined in the glossary found in Letter to Self-Occult Meditation as the law of cause and effect, apply to the future? What initiates the cause and effect sequence of future karma? Put another way, how can the realm of effect apply to that which has apparently not yet happened? I mean, we might hypothesize that this group of Lipikas work beyond the realm of sequential time where they, what? Guide, determine, design? DK uses the word wields, the quote, future destiny of the races. This is an example of a concept that transcends lower mind's subject-object thinking, and as DK points out, is only revealed somewhat at the fourth initiation. So yes, I see there's some comments or questions or whatever.
Yeah, Tom.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Could you read this future karma in such way that it doesn't really disagree with the principle of cause and effect, but it's some kind of super planning. So there is a plan, and of course the plan has to live according to how it is evolving in reality, in actuality. So it would be quite stupid just to stick to one plan and not take into account of what is happening actuality. So could this be kind of updating the plan? So it means that kind of level, so that then we wouldn't have to question the consequent proceeding of cause and effect.
Right. Well, you bring up a couple of good points. First of all, that we're not talking about individuals here at all. We're talking about groups and probably large influential groups, such as the sweep of a national effect over time. And then you're suggesting that these future, these Lepikas who deal with future karma might be considering and modifying the plan and according to an extension of what those effects may turn out to manifest as. Some good thoughts there. Thank you, Tom. And okay, Mikhail, who's next?
Nisa.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
yeah.
Okay. In the spirit of as above, so below, or vice versa, for me, it would seem that if I have future karma, it has to do with where I am right now, what I'm thinking, what energy am I putting out into the universe.
Mhm.
And so at some higher level, beyond the individual, it just seems like there must be maybe something like that going on.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Right. Well, in somewhat the same idea that you're building in the future a natural extension of what you're doing in the present. And I think since these Lepika lords deal with groups, they would be, it's very much like what Tom said, that they would be gauging the nature of the energy fields that are being created and the thought forms that are being created, and then determining their natural extension. And then considering the impact that would have on the plan. Thank you for that. Next up.
Yvonne.
I agree with Tom too. I think there's a purpose. The solar logos has a purpose, and there are plans to implement that. There may be 3 different plans, and the plans can change according to circumstances. So maybe these Lepika, have different routes to go according to what plan works out and which one doesn't.
Mhm. Yeah. Good ideas. Anyone else?
Jerry asks, can you comment on the relationship between the 4 Lepikas and the planetary logos hierarchy?
Well, the planetary, the ones specifically concerned with karma are those planetary logi who have the rays of attribute, right? The Mercury, 4th ray Mercury, 5th ray Venus, 6th ray Mars, and 7th ray. Well, we don't have a non-sacred planet here with 7th ray, so you go to Uranus. But since Uranus definitely deals with manas, then it qualifies at that level. So the relationship would be that you have this very strong conditioning effect by these logi that wield the powers of manas on humanity, and therefore are bound up in the karmic cycle because they initiate the energy that we respond to, because it is through mind that we accrue karma. It's through thinking that karma comes about. So I think that's one very strong relationship that takes place. And again, you have the 4s. The 4 rays of aspect as they manifest through those 4 planetary logi and the 4 Lepika lords. So there's a potent vibrational interrelationship among all those who work in this energy field, right? And it would include those, the Lepika lords and those 4 planetary logi. But, you know, this, except for beyond considering the energy of the 4th ray harmony through conflict, or the 4th plane of Booty, that plane of union, of bridging, of at-oneing, we, you know, there's no way we can directly know what that vibration is unless you happen to experience it in meditation. But that there is a bonding vibration that comes through the quality of 4-ness. Anyone else?
Yeah, Joe.
Yes, Joe.
I'm wondering about the relationship of the Lepika lords to the, I'll call it Godhead. In other words, I'm feeling like they are actually assisting in creating God's plan according to what's going on.
Oh, absolutely. You know, first of all, they participate in Godhead because they're of that high in order. And they're the ones who actually institute, or, you know, DK uses the verb wield, the plan itself. You know, there was a lot about this in the Secret Doctrine webinars that we've been doing. And they actually, you could say, draw up the plans, because they're so karmically oriented, these plans. You know, plans are limited by the, there's such a big subject, but the permanent atoms and the natural limitations and strengths that are recorded in those permanent atoms determine the potential that the lords of karma then work out or wield, or, you know, bring into play through what we call the plan.
Are you possibly suggesting that souls come and go, and that the Lepika lords could decide at what point certain groups of souls need to come back in to keep things in balance?
You know, off the top of my head, you know, this isn't DK speaking, but I would think yes, definitely, that they would determine the what groups could benefit the most, and within that group by manifesting, and also could benefit the planet by manifesting. You know,
Right.
this is going to be limited. You know, we tend to think of karma on its negative aspects, you know, like you do something bad, you're going to pay later, you know, but that's just the very, very bottom rung of that ladder, because, you know, possible other considerations are what we're talking about now, which is facilitating the unfoldment of the plan, through just what you're talking about, you know, the keying certain groups of egos to come into incarnation, though that keying would be limited by that personal karma, by the karma that of those groups. Yeah, go ahead.
One more question, because of the number 4 involved here. I'm wondering if this is particularly related to rays 4, 5, 6, and 7.
It is. Those are the logoic rays of the planets that exhibit those rays of attribute are the 4. You know, he says here the 4 planetary logi here written in light gray, the 4 planetary logi of harmony, knowledge, abstract thought, and ceremonial. So that is part of That's part of the interrelated groups of 4 here.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, and we'll be talking a lot more about this over the course of this webinar, just how this all applies. Okay, anyone else? Oh, we got a bunch of hands.
Yes. Tia.
When I look at this, I may be looking at it a little bit differently, but I think in terms of the human being, we have karma, and not all karma is going to be paid in this lifetime. We have to attain a certain evolution, or there's a certain plan in future incarnations that karma will be paid. And I think in some ways, this may be the same application for humanity. And because of the ever changing nuances of evolving consciousness, you would need people specifically applied to that task to make whatever necessary changes would be required based on where people actually evolve to in that future point. I mean, the plan is laid out, but we all, even humanity, have a say-so in our own actions right now as to where we are in that future. But I know that I have, I mean, from my understanding of the reading, karma that I'll be paying off in the future, because I can't do it in this lifetime.
Yeah, oh, certainly. HPB talks about 7 lives, that it takes 7 lives to work through, completely be beyond the karma that we are now enveloped in, that it takes 7 lives. So, but this would still be the regular lords of karma. It's weird to call them that. The 4 Maharajas, because they work with they determine what you have done, that is, whether good or bad, how that conditions your future lives and the life that you're currently living. Because, see, there's a difference between future lives where you pay off karma that you are involved in now and future karma. Future karma is something else again. You get the distinction, Tia?
I get the distinction, but I guess we could go back on that because you could conceptualize that as being future karma.
Yeah, you could. I just think that there is no other place for the Maharajas who work with past karma to apply that karma, but in the future, right?
Right.
So they necessarily work with past karma that is meted out in the future of this life and in future lives. That's how I understand it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you, but I think it would take on a different aspect when you're talking about humanity and talking about entire groups. I mean, because that's beyond even my comprehension how that would work at this time.
Yeah, indeed. That's he tells us that this is right here, what's highlighted on the page. This is only revealed somewhat at the 4th initiation, So it's where you break out of not only personality limitations, but even the limitations of soul awareness. You really are beginning to become monadically aware, and it takes that level of consciousness to have any true understanding of what we're talking about. But of course, that's not going to keep us from getting as far as we can through dialogue here. So, I like some of the ideas that have been brought up about future karma, which is that that those who work with this have a overall sense of the patterns that will be emerging and how those can be guided in the future as a result of a lot of things. For instance, humanities that have gone before, and their awareness of these, how different humanities have unfolded on other schemes within this universe. I mean, within this solar system, and possibly even, I mean, they're from Sirius, right? So, and these are the highest of these Lapika lords, and even possibly other schemes that they're aware of, that there are certain patterns that emerge, and that those have to do with the natural unfolding. But that's just a guess. Yes, so more hands.
Dana.
Yeah, relatively speaking, ideally, are we not as a group through our classes and meditations and focusing on the reappearance, are we not at this moment creating future karma?
We're creating karma.
Well,
Because
ideally, it will manifest sooner than later.
yeah, that's brings up what Tia was talking about. From the perspective that you just described, everything is future karma. If anything you do that is karmic in nature, that is to say, which creates karma, is going to be meted out in the future. So that includes us meeting here together and the understanding that we promote, within this group and among each other. That is hopefully a positive karma that will have an effect in the future. But that's just karma, not what he's distinguishing as being future karma. That's all I'm saying. I think it's a place beyond time and space that these Lapika lords experience, that allow them to make their determination based on a much larger picture than that which occurs in the unfolding of time and space. Okay, anyone else?
Well, I saw Maria Christina's hand go up and down a few times, so I don't know. Do you want to say anything?
Hi. It's just that people talk and respond, and so then I go, oh, that's yes. But I would just finally say, on the cosmic level, very simplistically, I would think it would be the karma from the first or the previous solar system, that of the third ray, to this of the second, on those incredible levels beyond time and space.
Yeah, I think that's, you're defining where it takes place. And I think that's probably as good as we can do, because, it's a kind of a koan, future karma, when karma is cause and effect, and you're talking about the future of future cause. Well, we normally think of a cause as occurring through some action, thought, or,
Yeah.
and if that
It's
cause hasn't happened yet, then where's the effect come in? And
well,
so
it's both happening at the same time. I'm sorry, I interrupted. I'm terrible. It's like right now we are enacting past karma and creating future karma both at the same time.
yeah, but again, that's that other way of looking at future karma, which is just karma. Yeah.
Yes.
I really want to make this distinction. This is not the karma that we're creating now that we'll have to work off in the future. That's just karma. That's what the four lords of the four Maharajas.
Maharajas.
Look, it says right here, let me go back up. The four Maharajas who apply past karma and work it out in the present.
Yes.
Well, that present is, is the point of manifestation, right? In other words,
Yes.
that's when karma manifests. So that's a continuing movement forward of that place of demonstration.
Yes.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I think Tia's hand's up again.
Okay, round two, Tia.
Well, no, I mean, I think the last sentence, and work it out in the present. I don't think we're disagreeing with you conceptually. I think what we're saying is that it's a matter of degree. And what you're talking about is of a more cosmic degree or higher degree than what we would normally do. But I think, if you're talking about as above, so below, as someone said, or the law of polarity, I don't think it's going to be something totally fantastically different. It's just going to be at a higher level of this future karma expressing itself.
Okay, that's I'm going to just pick this bone a little bit more.
Yeah.
You can't work out karma in the future. You have to work it out in the present. In other words, you can determine what the karma is going to be, but in terms of these four Maharajas,
Right.
There is only the present in which to demonstrate karma. They may determine that that present moment will happen in a future lifetime, but the actual demonstration of that karma will be at that present time.
But that's not what he's saying in the second paragraph, though. He
No,
doesn't say
that's
that
not.
it's working out in the present. He's leaving that up to us, and that's why I'm saying it's a matter of degree. So perhaps the formula changes a bit, but
I think
again,
it does.
But I don't think that it's a totally different animal. Your assertion that it's something totally different, and I guess we're saying that maybe we're thinking it's not totally different, but it's a matter of degree.
Okay, let's just leave it at that. I can accept that idea that it's a matter of degree, but that degree, I think, exists beyond time and space as we understand it. That's that next degree. Hey, even the Buddhic plane is, in a sense, DK tells us it's where the past and present come together. Past and future come together in the now or in the present. So the sense of time, even on the Buddhic plane, is already beyond the level of time-space continuum as we experience it with the past, present, and future, because on that plane they come together. And the Lupika lords have their being way beyond that, even the Maharajas. But okay, next up, anybody?
Yeah, we got a line.
Wow.
And Veronica? And Veronica. Oh, she put her hand up and okay, Joe.
Yeah, a question. How do they get there? I'm talking about what path did these cosmic beings follow to get to be Lapika lords?
Well, I think, first of all, you'd have to read the Syrian Akashic records to find out, because they belong to that system, and therefore they're a complete mystery to us. We can infer certain things since, that Sirius stands in relation to our solar system as the soul stands to the personality, and that they are a source of the second principle or the second ray energy. And so they're going to be great lords of compassion in that sense, and that's how the karma is. The fact of karma is itself a compassionate function, because without it we couldn't go anywhere. If we couldn't wipe our slate clean, we would be stuck in our misdeeds without being able to progress beyond them. You know, the law of karma allows us to return to a place of balance, so that, and again, there's the fourth ray, so that we can then again move forward, right? So that's the energy they wield. But I'm just as curious as you are about how to become a lord of karma. I don't even think the 7 cosmic paths include that particular path, not to my memory anyway. So I think you'd have to go to Sirius first and then enroll in the school of karma.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You bet. Next.
And Veronica,
Hello.
back?
I'm back because somebody telephoned me and had to go out. I don't know what you talked just now, but I want to give you my mathematical view. We have all seen the images of the fractals, which however you zoom in or you zoom out, it's the same thing, and it's infinitely big and infinitely small, and we can see it. We're on top and we can see it. Now, these fractals are functions, and if you change just one thing in the function, the whole fractal changes. And it might take of time and space and of karma. If you change one thing in the function that makes all this, which is infinitely big and infinitely small, everything changes. I don't know if it helps or it makes things worse in the talk we have.
Well, I really like that, because this brings in a new possibility, which is we're not just talking about linear cause and effect, which I think even at the level of the 4 Maharajas is something that could be not specifically determined in advance, but definitely could be predicted in terms of the general way things tend to unfold, right? At this level of consciousness during this Aryan race, right? And therefore, for this time, this Aryan race, we have a certain formula, a fractal, as you will. And those of you who have seen pictures of the Mandelbrot fractal, they're very, very, it's as if no matter where you go in it, it was all painted by the same artist, right? It's very much of the same look, even though it's never identical. No matter where you go, it's always some variation off the theme. But my point in bringing, and continuing with this idea is that once there's a fundamental shift, like for instance, through a change of a root race, then the formula that possibly future those who wield future karma, the Lipikas who wield future karma, maybe their function is to vary that formula, or to determine what the maximal formula would be for the next level, for the next iteration, for instance, for the next even subrace, because things are going to be just a little shifted at that time, let alone in the next globe or round, in which you would have fundamental shifts, I would think, in that fractal formula. So I know this is getting very abstract, but I like that a lot. I think that gives some insight into, some possibilities there. Okay, next. You bet. Thanks for that. Next.
Yeah, listening to what you said, it just came to me an idea that perhaps this is some kind of paradox, because the notion future karma it's really a paradox. And if it's a paradox, it's not a contradiction, but it might be just a change of perspective. So when we talk about the karma in terms of the greatest dimensions, well, then the karma is karma. And now we are just changing the perspective so that karma, that is normal karma in the higher dimensions, looked from the perspective of humans, then it looks like future karma. Perhaps this is just came to me the idea because using this kind of funny wording.
Yeah, that's a possibility. I would just guard against lumping it in with this first group, because when you really consider the here, let me get back to that because we seem to be talking about it. Yeah. So this group, yeah. So when you really consider the full parameters of this group, it could include a lot of what we're attempting to describe in this group. And the reason for that, of course, is because of our own limitations vis-a-vis time and space in terms of determining this. But yeah, I think it is definitely a shift in perspective, and that perspective has to do with breaking, being able to free oneself of the time-space continuum. Next up. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, round 3.
Hi, Tia.
No, I was going to agree with Tom in the sense that I thought it was very interesting that he says that it's only revealed at the 4th initiation. And by the time you get to the 4th initiation, you should have paid off most of your own personal karma, if not all of it. And so you are really, your perspective is shifted to purely planetary karma and paying it off. And so you have a totally different perspective as to how these workings, but again, I would say it's a shift. It's not necessarily, it's our consciousness has moved to a different level of perception of how these things are working.
Yeah,
I guess you and I are not disagreeing. It's just how we're approaching it as far as the lens that we're viewing it in. I just wanted to point that out. I'm not disagreeing with you.
Oh, God forbid. If you disagreed, we'd have to. What would be the karma for disagreeing? Good Lord. No, just kidding. I just realized in rereading that's the 4th initiation, the work of the first group of 4 cosmic Lepika lords is here. The lesser Lepika lords. And this was nagging at me, and I never just focused in on it. It's their work that is somewhat revealed at the 4th initiation, only slightly, let alone the second group, right? Am I reading that right? The 4 Lepikas of the second group referred to,
yes.
Right? The future karma, the work of the first group is only revealed somewhat at the 4th initiation. Because he puts that in this second paragraph, it seems like he's talking about the second group, but he's not. He goes back to the first to describe that.
So then following your argument, then it's really if you have to have the 4th initiation understanding to understand what we understand is just basic cause and effect. I mean,
right. And I think you hit on something when you said you've pretty much, your personal karma is finished. You've really broken the chains of samsara, which are determined by karma, right? That force you to reincarnate. And I think that's probably very germane in understanding this first group, that you can't truly understand these lesser Lepika lords until you have in your own life come to a place where karma is no longer, personal karma is no longer working on you, through you, etc. It's interesting. Okay, anyone else?
Robert.
Hey, you're chiming in finally.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to generate karma for myself by entering
By
this
saying
conversation.
anything at all?
Yeah, but I think that the lesser Lepika lords are a third group, and I think he's going 3, 2, 1. And the thing about the fourth initiation, causality at that moment, this is just another way of saying what's been said, is gone because the causal body is gone. You're not in a state of causality anymore. And, so we keep talking about the future, like in our future, the Lepika lords will do X, Y, and Z. But like you said, this is beyond time and space. They work in the eternal now. Right at this moment, they are applying the future but we can't see it because we are in a constricted, linear experience of consciousness.
Yeah, I especially like what you said about the causal body. That's like the elephant in the room, right? The causal body.
Yeah.
Whose cause is throwing us back into incarnation until at the fourth initiation, we can break it, shatter the causal body, and therefore come to a place where we can understand something of these Maharajas. Now, your second point, unfortunately, I think you may be right. I say unfortunately because it makes things really more difficult to understand, which is that it's really 3 groups that are described here, not 2. But I don't think there's really much profit in trying to go beyond that. Just noting that may be the case because we just don't have any information.
So are you saying that I have not developed any karma from this entering the conversation?
I doubt that, Robert.
Okay. Damn.
Okay, next up.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say I really like your thought, Robert. I think it nicely ties everything together, particularly the last comment about once the causal body is destroyed, you are in an eternal now. And so and you're one with the monad, which is at cosmic levels. So that would make sense.
Yeah, I would say then you enter, you truly are beyond the level of this first group at that point, and therefore you are capable of understanding them, at least, and even then, but slightly, right? But just in case you think we're in agreement, I would say that was said with a smile. I would say that you're still very much under the laws of those who applied future karma. But this is not anything like how we normally think of as karma. In other words, it's not even necessarily a restriction. It could be something that you participate in order to move the race forward in a direction that will be eventually self-realized, the self being the whole race. So, it's not like that you're any longer paying a price, obviously not, but that's it just comes back to that unknowable, which is the nature of future karma, and possibly after the shattering of the causal body, you are able to begin to participate in this design work that the Lepikas, not directly, but that you would be one who works with them. Because yeah, that's another thing to remember. It's not just these, 4 Lipikas. They each have this gray body of disciples that work with them to implement their designs. Okay, next.
Maria Christina.
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering whether the definition of karma itself, rather than a sequential on those levels, perhaps, rather than a sequential evolvement of events, through time and space, but the karma is rather imbued in the very quality of the substance.
Yeah.
Which it must work through. And you could have a variety of plans circumscribed by the substance we are emerged in, so to speak.
Yeah, well, I happen to know that's true because he talks about their close connection with the permanent atoms, and
Exactly.
which is where we hold our substantive limitations, right? The 3, at least the lower 3 permanent atoms. And it's not based on what we've done, except in that the cause, what we've done, has an effect on those substances, it conditions those substances. But yeah, I take your point.
It's kind of like, does the permanent atoms determine the karma, or the karma determine the permanent atoms?
Yeah, I think it's that idea of determining then, which is that they're both, you could say, exemplars of karma. It's you could look at it from both directions. That the permanent atoms, I don't think they're active. I think they're passive. They're holding tanks. They're nexus of vibrational information. And so I think the karma could be based on the qualities of that, but it's not, it's what the jiva chooses to do that then impacts those permanent atoms that
Right.
determines the karma.
But there's an essence, there's an aliveness to them that attracts the substance, for the sheaths.
Yeah, here's a teaching that DK gives that could help us on this. He says that the Lipika lords exhaust the possibilities that are possible in the realm of those permanent atoms.
Yes.
In other words, the permanent atoms experience every possible combination of energetic.
That's it. Yeah.
And that's their purpose, is to exhaust that potential that the Lipika's design experience, so that it exhausts the potential. And that gives you a different kind of take on karma, that we really do have to go through it all, right? And that's from the Lipika lower point of perspective, that's determined by those permanent atoms.
On these levels. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, can we move on from here? I think we've done all we can with this, unless you have something that's going to change our lives forever.
I believe we are.
We're there, huh? Okay.
We are there.
Yeah.
Ready to go.
Okay, let's go ahead. That was a great discussion. Terrific. So next up, third, the 4th creative hierarchy of, what we're doing here is listing groups of 4, right? And so you may be thinking about their interrelation. The next group is the 4th creative hierarchy of human monads, held by a 4-fold karmic law under the guidance of the Lipikas. All we have to do to understand the connection between the Lipikas and the human kingdom is read DK's glossary definition of the term karma. Can we get a reader, please?
Christina.
Karma. Metaphysically, the law of retribution, the law of cause and effect, or ethical causation. There is the karma of merit and the karma of demerit. It is the power that controls all things, the resultant of moral action, or the moral effect of an act committed for the attainment of something which gratifies a personal desire.
Thank you, Maria Christina. But going further than this definition, it is the Maharajas and Lepikas that actually make it possible for humanity to transition from the stage of animal man to soul-infused personality. For without the law of karma, there would be no way, as I mentioned before, to wipe the slate clean, to achieve the balance necessary for the next evolutionary step. And you have to remember too that all of our personal karma is part of the plan. There's no way not to create cause that will result in effect. It's not, there's no way that that's not going to happen. In other words, it's not a mistake that, you accrue and work off karma. That's the path. And that's, I think, a really important thing. And that really occurs to me because of the teaching about the permanent atoms, that the purpose, DK tells us, is to exhaust every possible combination of energies that the permanent atoms are capable of storing. And you can only do that through an infinite, a myriad number of cause and effects. Okay, in EA, we learned that, quote, Saturn is one of the most potent of the four lords of karma and forces man to face up to the past and in the present prepare for the future. Such is the intention and purpose of karmic opportunity. That's why it's called the planet of opportunity. And an externalization of the hierarchy, DK says, the names of the lords of karma signify symbolically and from the angle of their inner meaning, relationship, enlightenment, pain, and return. Ponder on this. They are all peculiarly active at this time, and in their activity lies the hope of humanity. That's the important phrase. This last phrase reveals the liberating aspect of karma. Okay, fourth, the four planetary logi of harmony, knowledge, abstract thought, and ceremonial, who are in their totality the quaternary of Manas, while in process of evolution, and who pass under their influence all the sons of men. So the human kingdom is especially influenced by this monastic quaternary of planets during our Aryan root race because of this root race's focus on monastic development. We can also see the tie-in with the lords of karma, as it is through mind and thus through these monastically oriented planetary logi and the responsibility that comes with mental activity that karma accrues. Could we get a reader for the footnote referenced by, quote, the four planetary logi? This is real basic stuff, but I want to read through it.
Robert has a question.
Yeah, Robert.
I think in turn, the permanent atom discussion was very interesting and got me thinking, when we were talking about is it a cause or an effect, everything is both a cause and effect at the same time.
Yeah.
A cause of something, an effect of something else. If we go back to page 4 of this book, it talks about the triple nature of the atom, it's composed of a positive nucleus, the negative electrons, and the totality of the outer manifestation, the result of the relation of the other two. So how the permanent atom works is probably each of those 3 sections of it probably do different things. And
well, first of all, DK tells us that permanent atoms aren't really atoms at all, that they're nexuses, nexi, who knows, of force that are able to hold the that which has gone before at their particular plane, right? So the level of development that has come to pass, say mentally, is held in the monastic permanent atom. And there's, well, that's another question. I'll go to the astral, so it's not so difficult that, all the level of advancement through astral substance and the understanding of one's emotional nature, that level is a nexus, a vibrational nexus that is held in the astral permanent atom. And as I said, DK literally says permanent atoms aren't actually atoms at all. I think that it's kind of like the term egg, or for like ego or egg or monad. It can just mean a place where forces intersect. So
okay, but for forgetting about the word atom for a second, everything in the universe is innately triple. Okay?
Yeah.
And it has kind of inner outer relationship between those two. The permanent atom, most likely, and I say this without having actual experience of the permanent atom, is there, its work is done in 3 ways. It's an effect of what it takes in from the karmic actions, thoughts, whatever. It's a cause in terms of being what part of what is necessary to calculate in order to create the next slide. And whatever the relationship is between, the past life and the present life, there's probably some other occult meaning that I'm not getting. But anyway, so when we think of the permanent atom, all I'm saying is I don't think it does one thing.
okay.
It's
Yeah.
triple.
Well, I don't know about that point, but the idea that causes the strong tie between cause and effect, and that the effect, which can be seen as the meted out karma, immediately is transferred into the next cause, right? In other words, there's no way of just abandoning who and where you are in your progress and not having the next next thing you do based on that body of effects that you've created up to that point. That's just we have free will, but in fact we move on in accordance with where we are on the path, right? So there is a unified, the effect in a sense becomes the next cause, even though not. Oh gosh, that's all I'll say about that.
But what's interesting about this too, in Vedanta, the Indian philosophical school, which is exoteric relative to this stuff, it's a long-term controversy about if you become enlightened now, this moment, do you have to still pay off the future karma? Or does the act of enlightenment eliminate that necessity. In the same way, what does it take? And I don't know if DK ever tells us, what does it take to destroy the causal body? Does it have to be 100% cleaned out? Or is there a level of, you know, after which the thing burns up? So again, I don't know the answers, but it's very interesting.
Yeah, well, DK says that advancement is limited by karma. In other words, you may have achieved a certain, for instance, the atomic substance in your aura may have risen to the place where you are ready to take the next initiation, but your karma can keep you from actually being able to take it. So, you know, there's quite a difference between the concept of spontaneous enlightenment, which is taught in the East, and DK's very progressive micro steps along the way towards certain stages of enlightenment. You know, there's quite a difference in the teaching, you know, so the way I reconcile them is to think that if you are enlightened according to the Eastern model, you have done the work beforehand. That, you know, you're not, because there's so many factors that support this idea. For instance, the raising of the Kundalini absolutely depends on having built up a etheric body that is capable of withstanding the power of that Kundalini moving up through the chakras. And, you know, an average human being would just blow their system apart. It's not going to happen, you know. The law of compassion would keep it from happening because you simply couldn't channel that kind of force. So, you know, the idea that you're just walking along one day, average man, you know, chopping wood, carrying water, and then you're enlightened and your Kundalini rises and you're now a Buddhic consciousness. I don't buy it.
I agree with you. I think that because there's no board of accreditation to tell you, yes, you've been, but imagine if you take the second initiation and you get whacked with the rod of power, you might in your life think, whoa, I've become enlightened. So that enlightenment is, like you say, it's progressive, it's stages. And you can see why that's the problem with the exoteric. Everything exoteric is not designed by the knowers. And somebody has to really be a knower or a seer to be able to tell what's happening to anybody else or to themselves.
Yeah, and it's a lot of it's semantics. You know, I mean, you can make a good case for putting it at the fourth initiation because shattering the causal body certainly is a form of enlightenment, you know, but compared to the fifth initiation, well, not so much. So I think it becomes irrelevant. And as you say, the next initiation has qualities of enlightenment compared to where you've been. Hey, even without the enlightenment aspect, look at how and who you were in the beginning of this lifetime compared to how and who you are now. You know, you're enlightened by comparison, would be my guess. You know, I mean, there's such a dramatic difference in the consciousness of a 20-something, you know, and the average age of this group. And that in itself is such a move forward, even without any idea of initiations, right? So,
yeah, that's certainly true. And yet, except as you become like a little child, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. So, you know, it goes both ways. There's no causation ever, but we're trapped in our experience of causation that, you know, force for language is causation, is, you know, linear. So anyway, thank you for the conversation.
Yeah. Anyone else? Okay.
Yes, one more. Oh, sorry. Maria Christina.
I'm sorry too, but the permanent atoms is what I find so fascinating. And there's these words, a quote that I'm trying to, the person in the permanent atoms, they're spirali. And the first 4 deal with the personality ray.
Right.
And corresponding to the lower quaternary.
Right.
And then the egoic ray with the 5th and the 6th, and
Right.
emerging from latency and potency with a monadic ray at the 7th. That, I think, would give great insight to how far we really have become capable of handling Kundalini force, the evolutionary, the karmic patterns. It's, anyway, I'm just having a very good time. Thank you.
Oh, good. Yeah, and I think what the Lords of Karma deal with is those first 4 spirally, but just how they work with it, well, if this was the 23rd century, maybe we could get a PhD in spirale. But as far as now, all we have now is the word search in DK, and then trying to put it all together. That's basically what I spend my time doing. And it's such a fascinating journey, but we just don't. We have so many holes in our information, right? Like, for instance, just what are the mechanics of how Lord of Karma works with the permanent atoms? That's a level of occult physics that is just not given. Anyway, let's go ahead. Could someone read this? It's the opposite spectrum. This is very introductory, but I'd like to read everything that appears in the book.
Mesa.
Someone else.
Robert.
Did you say Robert?
Yes.
Oh, okay. The 4 rays of mind are the 4 minor rays which form the egoic quaternary and which are synthesized eventually into a 5th ray, the 3rd major ray of active intelligence or adaptability. The names of the rays are as follows. The 3 major rays.
Okay,
1,
before you start here,
yeah.
you may just decide right now, all you listeners, to just tune out, but because you all know the names of the rays, right?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. The 4 rays of mind are the
Wait
4.
a minute. We already have a reader and he's halfway through the reading.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I just saw unmute.
Yeah, no. Thank you, though.
Muting.
So what I was going to say is someone could do a compendium of all the ways in which DK names the rays. Usually they repeat, but often the emphasis is different. And sometimes you'll throw in a word, like he does with the 4th ray here, note, that is different than the usual. So just, it never hurts to pay attention. Go ahead, Robert.
Okay. Anyway, 3 major rays: the ray of will or power, 2, the ray of love or wisdom, 3, the ray of active intelligence. The 4 minor rays: 4, the ray of beauty, harmony, art, or rhythm, 5, the ray of concrete knowledge or science, 6, the ray of abstract idealism, 7, the ray of ceremonial order or organization.
Okay, thanks. Just point out that he says the ray of love or wisdom rather than of love wisdom, different than the usual. Rhythm is added to the 4th ray, which is very important. Yeah. Okay. Next up, 5th. The Deva Lords are the 4 planes of Buddhi, or the planes of spiritual intuition. Manas, or the mental plane, desire, and the physical, who are likewise allied to the human evolution in a closer sense than the higher 3. So the four Deva lords are Indra, or on the Buddhic plane, Agni on the monastic plane, Varuna on the astral plane, and Kashidi on the physical plane. All these groups participate in and resonate with the energy inherent in the number four. Why is that? What is this quality of fourness that ties these groups together? The last phrase in a passage from TCF that we looked at a little earlier gives us some insight. Quote, all sum totals of four can be seen as one of the basic combinations of matter produced, and here's the kicker, produced by the dual revolutions of planes and rays. We talked about this, I think, in the last webinar. And all these groups are concerned with the liberation of the human kingdom from the matter aspect through the agency of karma, which is made possible by this dual revolution of the planes and the rays. Okay, next up, can we get a reader, please?
Yeah, now Nisa, are you still there?
Yes, so sorry about that.
Oh, no, it's a problem. We're informal around here.
Oh, thank goodness. A further interesting correspondence is found in the following facts that are even now in process of development. The fourth plane of Buddhi is the one on which the planetary logi begin to make their escape from their planetary ring pass not, or from the etheric web that has its counterpart on all the planes. When man begins, in a small sense, to coordinate the Buddhic vehicle, or to express it otherwise, when he has developed the power to contact ever so slightly the Buddhic plane, then he begins simultaneously and consciously to achieve the ability to escape from the etheric web on the physical plane. Later, he escapes from its correspondence on the astral plane, and finally, from the correspondence on the fourth subplane of the mental plane, this time via the mental unit. This leads eventually to causal functioning, or to the ability to dwell and to be active in the vehicle of the ego, who is the embodiment of the love and wisdom aspect of the monad.
Thank you. Okay, first, the fourth plane of Buddhi is the one on which the planetary logi begin to make their escape from their planetary ring pass not, or from the etheric web that has its counterpart on all the planes. So, you know, first of all, the escape is from the cosmic etheric to the cosmic astral plane and beyond. Just like our escape is from the systemic fourth subplane of the etheric to the astral and beyond. Planetary logi begin to make this transition from the Buddhic plane because it is the lowest of the cosmic etheric physical planes. Transformation is always from below to above. Currently, the four logi that work with the monastic principle are centered on the Atmic plane. MDR tells us the Buddhic plane is much ruled by the planet Neptune. Interestingly, the planet most known to promote the ability to escape. The other two planets related to the Buddhic plane, Mercury and Jupiter, also offer opportunities, Mercury through mobility and Jupiter through expansion. It can always depend on Michael to come up with the astrological perspective. Next, when man begins in small sense to coordinate the Buddhic vehicle, or to express it otherwise, when he has developed the power to contact ever so slightly the Buddhic plane, then he begins simultaneously and consciously to achieve the ability to escape from the etheric web on the physical plane. This is a key teaching, right? In Esoteric Psychology, Volume 1, we learned that it was at the time of the second outpouring that each of the divine centers of consciousness put forth a thread of being into an atom of the highest subplanes of the Atmic, the Buddhic, and the Monastic planes, atoms destined to become the nuclei of the future bodies, each on its respective plane, the three forming the upper triad so often referred to. So, when a disciple contacts the Buddhic matter of his or her constitution, he or she begins to build consciousness in his or her Buddhic sheath. This eventually reverses the polarity of the lower sheaths, allowing for escape from the physical etheric. Let's continue with MDR's astrological insight on coordinating the Buddhic vehicle. Can we get a reader, please?
Yeah.
This is a most important occult thought. Why should this escape be related to contact with Buddhi? Again, Neptune comes into play, for no individual begins to coordinate the Buddhi vehicle until Neptune is prominent in his chart. No man begins to coordinate the Buddhic vehicle until he comes under the influence of Neptune. When this happens, his personality horoscope will show this influence as dominant. Neptune is a predominant ruler of the Buddhic plane, the fourth, and Neptune is sometimes hypothesized to have a fourth ray in its system, perhaps the personality ray. We must also not forget that escape from the etheric web is conscious escape on the astral plane, which again, Neptune rules. In any case, conscious controlled escape from the etheric web may be looked for around the time of the second initiation, relating as it does to the astral plane. Neptune, of course, is in prominent activity at the time of the second degree. In fact, however, escape can begin much earlier, even before the first initiation for many people who are only beginning their spiritual quest are increasingly able to leave their physical body and be aware on the astral plane. This would suggest that Buddhic contact, in a slight degree, can occur rather early in the process of aspiration. This Buddhic contact may be the key to reorientating desire during the early stages of reversing the wheel.
Thank you, Tia. Any thoughts or questions about this? Again, an invaluable astrological perspective. Okay, next. Later, he escapes from its correspondence on the astral plane, and finally from the correspondence on the fourth subplane of the mental plane, this time via the mental unit. So here we learn that the etheric web has a corresponding protective shield or web on the astral and mental planes, just like it does between the etheric and astral planes, right? DK's teaching that a planet, quote, begins to make their escape from their planetary ring pass not on the fourth plane of Buddhi, suggests that after a transference is initiated on the fourth etheric subplane, whether cosmic physical etheric or systemic physical etheric, its consciousness progressively transfers up through the subplanes by means of the fourth subplane, initially made possible by a disciple's tentative contact with the Buddhic plane. Finally, once on the mental plane, a disciple transfers his consciousness through the building of the antakarana, from the mental unit to the monastic permanent atom. Next, This leads eventually to causal functioning, or to the ability to dwell and to be active in the vehicle of the ego, who is the embodiment of the love and wisdom aspect of the monad. So escape via the mental unit leads to both consciousness in the causal body, which happens at the third initiation, and to consciousness in the monastic permanent atom via the antakarana. We might assume that an earlier but similar transference takes place between the astral and the mental body. But keep in mind that it is that first faint contact with the Buddhic plane that initiates all this progressive upward movement. You may remember that the second step of the antakarana is to move into your higher level subplanes of the astral plane, and to build a vibrational connection with the Buddhic. It's completely through the imagination, but that through that that line of intent, that you will eventually make contact with the Buddhic plane, and that's why it's a very important step before you actually project the energy from the mental unit up. You establish this Buddhic astral connection. Okay. Next up, can we get a reader, please?
Yvonne.
Note here the correspondence to that proved fact that many can even now escape from the etheric body and function in their astral sheath, which is the personality reflection of the same second aspect. When a man takes the fourth initiation, he functions in the fourth plane vehicle, the Buddhic, and has escaped permanently from the personality ring past naught on the fourth subplane of the mental. There is not to hold him to the three worlds. At the first initiation, he escapes from the ring past naught in a more temporary sense, but he has yet to escape from the three higher mental levels, which are the mental correspondence to the higher ethers, and to develop full consciousness on these three higher subplanes. We have here a correspondence to the work to be done by the initiate after he has achieved the fourth solar plane, the Buddhic.
Okay, so first, note here the correspondence that proved fact that many can even now escape from the etheric body and function in their astral sheath, which is the personality reflection of that same second aspect. So the correspondence DK is making is the transfer of the physical to astral planes during sleep, or in meditation as well. And this being a lower reflection of that great transfer into the true second aspect, the egoic vehicle. So he's drawing an analogy here that, this preliminary escape from the physical etheric to the emotional presages the final escape into the higher three subplanes of the mental plane. Next, when a man takes the fourth initiation, he functions in the fourth plane vehicle, the Buddhic, and has escaped permanently from the personality ring past naught on the fourth subplane of the mental. There is not to hold him in the three worlds. So the staging ground for escape from the lower quaternary, that's the realm of human endeavor, is the fourth subplane of the mental plane, shown here. A disciple makes this transference by linking the mental unit via the antakarana to the lowest permanent atom of the triad, which is the monastic permanent atom shown here. Notice the dominance of the bridging energy of the number 4, which DK just stressed in the listing of groups that work with this energy and thus aid in this transference. You know, you could make a case that all of these groups work in concert to create this transition from the 4th subplane, the 4th etheric, to the 4th cosmic etheric, the Buddhic plane. And finally, at the first initiation, he escapes from the ring pass not in a more temporary sense, but he has yet to escape from the 3 higher mental levels, which are the mental correspondences to the higher ethers, and to develop full consciousness on these 3 higher subplanes. We have here a correspondence of the work to be done by the initiate after he has achieved the 4th solar plane, the Buddha. So the ring pass not here referenced is the physical etheric, which the disciple escapes, since much work is done on the astral plane in preparation for the first initiation. Later, the initiate must escape from the 3 higher mental subplanes, which are the mental correspondence to the highest 3 cosmic ethers, which in other words, these 3 subplanes are to the mental plane what these 3 subplanes are to the entire cosmic physical subplane. And which the initiate of 5th, 6th, and 7th degrees must learn to navigate. Since many of us have probably taken or are about to take the first initiation, I want to close this session with some reading on the first initiation. If we could get a reader for this, please.
Joe, do you want to read?
When the threefold basic fire and the threefold pranic fire meet and merge, then evolution proceeds with greatly increased velocity. This is affected definitely at the first initiation, when the polarization becomes fixed in one or other of the 3 higher centers, which center being dependent upon a man's ray. The downrush of spirit and the uprising of the inner fires of matter, controlled and directed by the conscious action of the fire of mind, produce corresponding results on the same levels on the astral and mental planes, so that a paralleling contact is brought about and the great work of liberation proceeds in an ordered manner.
Thank you, Joe. Next reader, please.
There.
He who directs his efforts to the control of the fire of matters is, with a dangerous certainty, playing with a fire that may literally destroy him. He should not cast his eyes backwards, but should lift them to the plane where dwells his immortal spirit, and then by self-discipline, mind control, and a definite refining of his material bodies, whether subtle or physical, fit himself to be a vehicle for the divine birth and participate in the first initiation. When the Christ child has been born in the cave of the heart, then that divine quest can consciously control the lower material bodies by means of consecrated mind.
Thank you, Karen. And next up.
Next is Kira.
The awakening on the astral plane and the gradually increasing activity of the centers until the first initiation is reached. This is paralleled by the tremendously keen use of the senses for the purposes of discriminating between the self and the not self.
Thank you. And next up.
Kirsten.
Therefore, the mental unit of the man in this fifth subrace will receive increased stimulation, enabling man to vibrate on the third subplane of the mental plane, on which the causal body is found. The fifth spirilla will consequently become active, and the electrical force or the phoetic current will pour through it and enable those men who are at the right stage to utilize this force in order to take the first initiation. As this fifth spirilla influence becomes more and more felt, its effects will be seen on the astral plane in an intelligent, conscious control, which will be based not so much on the desire for harmony as on a desire for scientific, intelligent manipulation of astral matter.
Thank you. And finally,
Maria Christina.
I'm unmute.
There you
Okay,
go.
there we go. At the first initiation, the disciple has to contend with the crystallizing and destroying forces of Vulcan and Pluto. The influence of Vulcan reaches to the very depths of his nature, while Pluto drags to the surface and destroys all that hinders in these lower regions.
thank you, Maria Christina. Okay. Yeah, hopefully that we can relate the information in these various quotes to what we've been reading, especially the idea of the disciple who's poised on the fourth systemic etheric, being able to contact the Buddhic plane as well as the third subplane of the mental plane. So that's going to do it for today. We're out of time. Very much enjoyed it.